What's up everyone? I'm Twisted. I'm recording this on the 9th of November. The Act 1 of Season 2 of Arcane came out like 4 hours ago. I watched it all. I have a lot of things to say about it, so I'm going to go through it all over again and give my thoughts on it. For obvious reasons, I can't just show clips of the show here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewatch all 3 episodes and I'm going to pause them at certain parts to explain some details or just give my thoughts on what's happening. Hopefully that's okay for YouTube and Netflix, but we'll see. Starting with episode 1, Heavy is the Crown, obviously named after the song, and season 2 starts exactly where season 1 ended, with the aftermath of Jinx's rocket hitting the council. And we get this very interesting shot of Mel's golden tattoos, which obviously is hinting at the fact that Mel somehow used some kind of magic or whatever to save herself and Jace. And a bit later into this episode, I believe, Jace is even going to wonder to Mel how he survived unscratched. Also, I'm a big fan of this like layered noise texture that they put on top of these scenes. Also, something interesting about season 2 is the lack of flashbacks. Almost every single episode in season 1 started with a flashback or had a flashback close to the start of the episode, but here in season 2 is more to the point. Sort of like in season 1 we were setting up all the characters, giving all the context. Now we have all the context, we don't need that, we can go straight to the action. And I have to say that I think season 2 so far that goes straight to the action maybe a bit too much, in the sense that I think things happen a bit too fast. But I have to say that, and I should have said this at the start, that this is still the first day of these episodes being out. We still haven't seen the full show, and I haven't like fully digested everything yet. So my review so far, or at least my thoughts, might change in the future. So grain of salt on that. All of this to say that I don't know if the show going too fast is a bad thing or a good thing. Again, it's still too early to say. But yeah, I almost forgot. I was mentioning flashbacks also because the start of season 1 starts with the flashback of the war that happened on the bridge, right? And here we are starting with a very similar color palette, like red everywhere. In this part we are seeing all the council members that died, and holy look at this, Jesus. We just saw Caitlyn's mom, well, dead, and we are seeing Ambessa rushing toward Mel. I think so far in these first 3 episodes, we are really getting to know Ambessa and what she stands for. In the first season, she seemed a bit more cold, and it's not like she isn't cold here, but we can really see that what she cares about is her family and their legacy, right? That's the most important thing to her. And now we are in the part where Jace takes Victor to the lab and brings the X-Core to him, or close to him, and I have no idea what's really happening here. It seems like the X-Core is fusing itself with Victor, adapting to his body. And I'm here going frame by frame in the moment that this happens, and we can see this sort of corruption or pattern that we've seen in season 1, that we've seen in a lot of promotion for season 2, and that we'll see over and over in these episodes of Act 1. It's just a reminder that every time we see this pattern, we should think about Victor, we should think about the X-Core. And here we have the intro of season 2, which reuses the same song from season 1, except now we have different visuals. We start off with Vi clearing her name from her face for some reason. I wonder if this means that she's renouncing her past or her connection to the person that she was prior to the events of Act 2 and 3 of Season 1. And also, every single character is wearing these white clothes. I'm not sure what that means, what that represents. And here we have Echo. I can't really show the clip, but notice that his shadows are moving like the hands of a clock. Obviously very in theme for the boy who shattered time. And here we see Victor with a mask, which could mean a lot of things, and it's still a bit too early to fully know what this represents, but it seems to me that Victor is going to take a role that is beyond just him as a person, right? He's going to become a symbol, right? I believe that's what the mask represents. Oh, it's very cool how they are using these like film-like transitions, and in some frames you can see shots from the show. And here we have Ambessa, and I'm certain that this is a reference to something, the way that she's sitting, the chair. I'm pretty sure I've seen this somewhere, not quite sure where, but notice that she's holding what seems to be a rose, obviously going to become relevant in these 3 episodes. And here we have the shot of Caitlyn. I'm not really sure what this represents. She looks like she's going to announce to the world a new iPhone. And here we have a shot of Jace being blinded by some kind of light. I'm really curious to see what this represents in the show. And here we see a rose, a black rose, and notice Ambessa's eyes looking a bit golden. And here we see Mel with a bunch of shadow hands reaching toward her. I wonder if this represents all the pressure from the people of Piltover, all the pressure that is put on her, or perhaps this is connected to the Black Rose, as we'll see in, I believe, the 3rd episode. And here we see Jinx holding a huge flag, obviously a symbol of revolution, considering everything that we've seen from the trailers so far, where Jinx seems to become a symbol for the Undercity, a symbol to rally the people of the Undercity. And here we see a clear reference to the relationship between Caitlyn and Vi, which becomes a bit heated in these 3 episodes. And notice they go from hugging to almost like magnets of the same pole, just being pushed away from each other. And why? What's pushing them apart? I don't know, maybe the fact that Vi's sister killed Caitlyn's mother, maybe? And this is a very interesting shot, especially because of the name of the 1st episode, right? This shot right here looks like Caitlyn wearing a crown, and that might be referencing the promotion that Caitlyn gets in Act 1. And here we see this shot of Echo, which is very reminiscent of his fight with Jinx in the bridge in Season 1, and he rewinds. Maybe we are going to see the Z-Drive in Season 2. I wasn't a believer at first, but I guess at this point it's going to happen, right? Mel screams and pushes all the shadows away, and now she's taking her mother's role. Does this mean that Ambessa is going to die? That Mel is going to become the leader of House Medarda, of the family Medarda? Who knows? They did say that no champion has plot armor, which to me was like, yeah, sure. But now that they've introduced Ambessa, which is a brand new champion, which doesn't have like years and years of people being fans of the character, I think it's possible that Ambessa might die in the show, right? And that Mel takes her place. I think that if they kill Jinx, everybody would be very upset, right? But if they kill Ambessa, I don't think a lot of people would be that upset. And it would actually be the first time that a League of Legends champion dies and hopefully stays dead in the lore. That would be a first. This shot should be Jace, I believe. And here we see Victor putting on the mask, which again I think is him accepting his role as a symbol for the people who believe him to be some kind of savior, right? I'm not sure what the masks in the background represent. They might be his followers, maybe? And like these shots with Jace have to be connected to like that area that him and Heimerdinger and Echo find themselves in, right? This has to be connected to that somehow. It's cool that the first intro ended with the sisters clashing and everything kind of breaking into the logo. And now in season 2 we have this light which reveals the logo. I wonder what the parallels are there, what are the themes that they are showing us with these different intros. And then we have this very sad scene of the funeral of Caitlyn's mother, which is obviously here to give us context for how and why Caitlyn turns into the character that she's turning into these episodes, right? This revenge-seeking person. Also, I love all these shots of her father, right? Like Caitlyn and Mel says this later in the episode, I believe in this episode, or maybe the next one. Caitlyn does a really good job at hiding what she's feeling. Her dad, obviously not so much. I don't know who these are. I'm not sure if we are supposed to know who these people are. I don't think so. And this is an icon that is currently on PBE. Now it makes sense. I first thought that this could be related to the memorials that are on the Bridge of Progress following the war that happened there. But no, this is just referencing the funeral of Caitlyn's mother. And here we see Caitlyn dropping some petals onto the casket of her mother. Very reminiscent of the scene from Grayson's funeral, where Marcus was the one dropping the petals. I just love how the only things in color are Caitlyn, her mother, and Vi, right? That's all that's on her mind, I guess, right now. Like, even her father is just with the same, like, black and white tones. It's really, really beautiful. And here we get the shot from the trailers that made everyone, or at least made me, think that Caitlyn's mother was going to die. And here we see what's left of the council, discussing what they will do now after this, and we can see that Ambessa is already pulling some strings, not so behind the scenes. And here we see Mel taking a stance not only for the innocents that might get caught in the crossfire, but also for Jace. As we know, neither Jace nor Victor really wanted X-Tech to become a weapon. However, Ambessa is going to pull some strings behind the scenes to push Jace in that direction. And now we get this very interesting shot that we've seen a similar one in Wild Rift, except it didn't have the characters. But notice this circle right here, this area right here where there's no destruction for some reason. And who was here? Here was where Mel, Jace, and Victor were seated, or at least Jace and Mel. And whatever Mel did to save Jace, she also, obviously, saved this whole part of the room. And here we see guilt crawling onto Caitlyn's mind. And I think that's really interesting because that's obviously a theme that we've seen in Season 1, right? With Vi wishing she hadn't left her sister, with Echo telling Vi that he wished he was there to help, and well, now we are seeing that with Caitlyn. And here's one of the main themes of, well, Season 1, but especially Season 2 from what I'm seeing, legacy, right? We know that Ambessa, for her, her family, and their legacy is the most important thing. We know that for Victor, what he was scared the most was not leaving a legacy behind, being forgotten. So the themes of the new season remain consistent. And obviously, her father is not going to be a big fan that the sister of the person who killed his wife is apparently living in their house, I think. And this is a nice moment. As I've said so far, Caitlyn has been holding back her emotions, right? Really not showing them. And this is the moment that she finally breaks down. And who does she feel comfortable doing that with? It's with Vi. And here Caitlyn tries to convince Vi to join the Enforcers. Of course, Vi is going to say no. I think that was obvious. But she comes back around later. And here we see a bit of emotional blackmail from Caitlyn. I'm not sure if blackmail is the right word in English, but obviously trying to make Vi feel guilty so that Vi joins her side and does what she wants, right? And here we have a cool shot of Vi, and I feel like this is also a reference to something. And now we get introduced to this character that will later help against the camp barons and join the Enforcers as well. And this is what I mean when I say that it feels like everything is happening so fast, because we barely get to know this guy, and suddenly he's part of like Caitlyn's main squad. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I don't think they even say his name in the first 3 episodes. And now we get to see like the state of Victor post merging with the X-Core, and like watching this for the first time, it was crazy. I had no idea what I was looking at. Again, we see the texture that we keep seeing over and over, and look at this. It's almost like those black fluid metals, right? Reacting to magnets. I wonder if it's because Mel is also magical. And here is the scene that I was talking about. Jace is wondering how the hell did he survive without any scratch, and Mel is just going to say, yeah, those things happen. There's no sense to these things. I wonder if she really means that and she just doesn't know her powers, or that she has powers, or if she's just lying to keep her power or her magic hidden from Jace. I'm really curious. And here the show is reminding us that Jace does not want to use the X-Tech as weapons, which is funny because in like the next episode he builds weapons, I'm pretty sure, with the X-Tech. Again, everything happens really fast. And here's what I was saying. Caitlyn is hiding how she feels really, really well. And here we have a scene with Caitlyn dropping petals, which obviously ties to the scene that we saw in the funeral, with Caitlyn dropping petals onto her mother's casket. And in this scene, she's dreaming or thinking about killing Jinx. And here we have this visual of the vents blowing up air, which will become relevant in the next episodes. And this was the line that first gave me hope that Caitlyn wasn't going on like a full-on revenge arc, right? She's saying that she wants to tear her laugh from her throat forever. And Jace is obviously surprised by this, and Caitlyn is like, yeah, I know. I just now know how easy it is to hate them. And I was like, okay, at least she's aware of the feelings that she's going through. However, being self-aware is not enough. And here we see the doubt in Jace. Maybe the X-Tech needs to be weaponized. Maybe Vi is right, and the gauntlets, or I guess the weapons, will solve everything. Caitlyn disagrees. And now we get the introduction of the other 2 members of what will be Caitlyn's squad, And we can also see here a little teaser for what's coming next, which is a banner with Jarvan. And here is where Vi learns that Caitlyn had to pull on some strings to allow her to become a warden, which obviously is going to start the process of Vi agreeing to join the Wardens, right? This is the moment where her mind begins to change. And here we go back to where Jace gave his Progress Day speech, I believe. And now these two are hanging out. They just met, but okay. And we have this shot here of Mel, which is almost exactly like the one from the Progress speech. And here is when Vi becomes aware that something suspicious is going on. We see this tattoo. I wonder if this is also a callback to Season 1. Personally, I don't really remember. Also, I rewinded back a little bit because I just noticed that this paper right here that these suspicious folks are giving to the Wardens will appear later. This is actually the letter that Ambessa gave to them, which is the same that Caitlyn also got earlier in this episode. Obviously, the invitation for this ceremony. And here we get a very similar effect to the one that we saw at the end of Season 1 with this kind of glow around the gold of Mel. I think the intention here was for the viewers to at least expect that something really bad was going to happen to her. Something bad really happened, but she didn't die. So, and now that I think of it, it makes sense why she didn't die, right? Because this was all set up by Ambessa. So yeah, like right here, Mel is not in danger, probably. Also, I didn't mention, but I think it's obvious, this is one of Silku's Chem Barons. In specific, the one whose child was killed by Jace. And now we see the chem tanks dropping in. This jump scare right here actually got me the first time I watched it. And here we see the Warden from Act 1, the one that was about to find Jace and Victor, but Mel intervened. And a lot of shots from this scene we've seen in the trailers, and I was at least able to deduce a lot of things right. For example, the fact that this takes place in the same area from the Progress Day speech, the fact that Caitlyn wanted Vi to join the Enforcers, but she initially declined. Only after this fight does she actually agree to join the Enforcers. The fact that this guy wasn't even part of the Enforcers before the fight. I actually thought he was a Zonite. I got that part wrong. But yeah, I feel like they showed maybe a bit too much in the trailers. And here we see Vi using Jace's hammer. She uses his Q projectile to protect him from the Chem Baron. And then the Noxians show up. The Noxians take care of all the chem tanks. And while I was watching this was very, very suspicious, right? They appeared on the right moment and they just took care of everything, right? That's really, really suspicious. And obviously in, I believe, episode 3, it's revealed that, yeah, Ambessa set all of this up. And Ambessa kills Rennie, I believe it's her name, leaving no evidence behind. And this will get referenced in the next episode, I believe, in the Chem Baron montage with Rennie disappearing from the table. And here's the first shot of Ambessa wearing her wolf mask. And here's the turn, right? This is what pushes Caitlyn to the edge, from hating Jinx to hating everyone, or at least mostly everyone in the Undercity. And here we have some really cool shots of what I assume are Caitlyn's ancestors, right? Her mother and probably her grandmother, or at least a distant relative maybe. And what is this right here? These look like Ionian trees, don't they? That's interesting, right? And we can see here a bow, which obviously ties to the fact that Caitlyn's family is associated with firearms. Maybe they didn't start with firearms. Maybe they started with bows and arrows. And this ancestor in the middle seems to just have arrived at Piltover, right? We see boats here. Here we see them with the Piltover River in the background. So it seems that her family wasn't initially from Piltover. And we should also keep in mind that I believe Piltover, as it is now that Arcane is canon, is like less than a century old, I believe. I might be misremembering that, which kind of lines up with this timeline that we are seeing here. Piltover was probably quite young when this was painted. And first Easter egg, I believe I noticed while watching, we can see the head of a raptor here. And there's also a butterfly here. Almost looks like Lulu's Pix. Interesting. Oh, and here we see a globe of Runeterra. I do think that this is Ionia, and this should be Noxus right here. Also, this is like a storing system for files, and it looks really cool. Alright, and here we see a lot of frames from Piltover's past, and I want to go through them frame by frame. Okay, so we see what looks to be Piltover in the past, a bit more medieval, maybe, at least based on the format of the roofs. And we see this dark smoke, which we'll learn what it is later. And in the story, I don't think it's revealed in this episode, but this is when Caitlyn finds out, or at least learns about, the fact that her family constructed a ventilation system to keep the Zon Grey under control. And here we see her family inaugurating it. I believe this should be the woman that was in the middle painting, right? And we see here what I assume are Piltovan or Zonite miners, probably. And here we are seeing like masks and what I assume are the effects of the Grey on people. And this is all like setting up the fact that Caitlyn is going to weaponize the Grey. Now, this is really cool, obviously, based on the masks worn by doctors during the Black Plague, which is, I think, an imagery that we haven't seen a lot in Runeterra. Maybe I'm misremembering something, but I'm pretty sure we haven't. But feels totally at home within the steampunk sort of aesthetic that the city has. And I believe that some of these illustrations are kind of depicting the Grey as sort of an evil monster spirit folklore type thing. Right? I think that makes sense. Because later, when we actually see the Grey, it's almost always looking like a monster. And honestly, these frames right here almost seem to be depicting kind of a tragedy that happened, maybe? Yeah, because we see people evacuating, we see something getting destroyed right here. Oh, and this is a nice shot, I get it. This is like, again, the monster made out of smoke that we were seeing, and it's now being laid on top of Caitlyn. Again, foreshadowing that she was going to weaponize this gas against Zon. And while this is happening, we are seeing the first shots of Jace creating weapons for Caitlyn. And here we see the current state of the Council of Piltover, and they are deep underground, which is really interesting because in the current not so canon lore anymore, we know that there's a lot of history under Piltover and Zon. From void beings being dealt with by Malphite to a lot of ancient history from the time when Shurima was still an empire. We know that the name Zon comes from Oshravazon, which was a Shuriman city. So it's cool that they are, in these 3 episodes, showing more of the city. We have this example right here of the council having some sort of dungeon underground, and later we'll see that the X-Gates also go really deep underground. Again, there's a lot of history under the 2 cities, and I hope that gets to be explored in this season. That would be really cool. And here Mel is saying that the camp tanks likely had help from someone on the inside, and we see the shot of Ambessa. In my mind, I was like, okay, if they are framing Ambessa as a potential traitor, she's probably not going to be the one. Turns out, nope, this was just simple foreshadowing. Yes, she was the one that set all of that up. And here is the scene where I think Caitlyn gets the attention of Ambessa, because she just tells I believe his name is Salo, the male council member, to shut the hell up, I'm talking now. And Ambessa is like, I like that. I like this girl. And I think this was the moment that Ambessa started plotting on how to get Caitlyn on her side and in power so that she could control her. And here we have another shot from the trailers, and something that I hadn't noticed the first time I watched. Like, obviously, this is Caitlyn showing off to the council that they are weaponizing X-Tech, that Chase created X-Tech weapons. But the only weapons here that use X-Tech are Caitlyn's rifle and Vi's gauntlets, which means that whole sequence of Jace building weapons, he was actually just building the rifle. These 3 guys right here don't use X-Tech weapons, which is interesting because at least it's showing some restraint from Jace, right? He didn't just build a full arsenal of weapons. No, he built one weapon. Like, even the gauntlets weren't built as weapons. These were built for miners in the fissures. This was technically the first time X-Tech was weaponized, at least with intent. So while editing, I noticed that there are a couple more details that I want to mention. For example, here, despite the other enforcers not having X-Tech weapons, we know that in future episodes they will get an X-Tech upgrade. And we know that because of the new TFT set. At least Maddie the girl and Loris the shield guy will have X-Tech gems on their weapons. And we can see that they have this new symbol right here, which we also see on the Pit Fighter scene, a new symbol for the enforcers, which now might be based on the Kierman's crest, following Caitlyn becoming the commander. And also, I love this transition right here, from Jace building an X-Tech weapon to Victor stuck in the arcane goo. And I find it interesting because this is Jace going against what he and Victor believed. And I think that's why we transition back to Victor, because that's probably what he's thinking about, right? How he went against his ideals in a way, or their ideals. And we get this closing scene with Victor's eyes or eyebrows twitching as he starts to pull metal from the room before we transition to Singed. And so far, all 3 episodes end with Singed, which are obviously setting up for something big in Act 2 or Act 3, which we all know that is going to be Warwick, especially from the ending of the 3rd episode. But here we get a bit of context for how Warwick came to be. And here we get to see Singed, and we see that Singed is hunting a Merkwolf. Merkwolves, obviously from the lore, but most notably from League of Legends. They are one of the jungle camps. And I believe that this is fully 2D. I believe these are not 3D models, which is really cool. And look how much they look like Warwick. Now I'm noticing this now. Like the teeth, which are obviously based on wolves, but it looks so much like Warwick. And I believe we'll see 2 sets of eyes in the next episode, 2 blue and 2 green, I'm pretty sure. And Singed is getting ready to capture them, and please, Riot, just give this man a video already. Like, come on. And that was the 1st episode. Let's jump right in onto the 2nd one. So, Episode 1 started with the aftermath of the rocket hitting the council and with the funeral of Caitlin's mother. Episode 2 shows us what was happening on Jinx's side. She too had a funeral for Silco, and obviously the fact that she is underwater with his body is a callback not only from the moment that Silco almost died at the hands of Vander, but also from that one scene where Silco took Jinx to the water to kill off Powder. And I believe that this is a very similar shot to the one that we see from Vi during her Pit Fighter arc, where she also screams underwater, except it's in a sink. And then we have this montage, which we saw yesterday, at least from the time that I'm recording this, which is going to show us what happened to the Camp Barons. First, they were all alive. Then Savika took care of one of them, and the Camp Barons were like, oh, hold on, what's happening? Then Jinx took care of Silco, hold on, what the hell? And Ambessa took care of Rennie. So now we are setting up the 3 Camp Barons that are left, which is interesting because on the Piltover side, there are also 3 council members left. And I wonder if the visuals in the back are related to something that they do. I know that we know what each of them does within the Undercity, like what's their role, but I don't remember. From the 2nd season so far, it seems that Smitch is involved with augmentations, but here we see boxes full of Shimmer, and here with his 3rd Camp Baron, we see their thugs against the thugs of another Camp Baron. So maybe what's happening in the background is just the war between these 3 guys. And obviously, what do they all want? They want Silco's place. And like, this is just so funny. The most evil people in Zon, the leaders, the Camp Barons, and they look like children. But we see here that the men with the hats and the chins and numbers on their forehead are from this Camp Baron in the middle. The guys dressed a bit more fancy are the ones part of Smitch's gang, and the ladies in latex are from this Camp Baron right here. Apologies, I don't know the name of every single background and side character, but I also don't think it's super relevant here. And here we see wanted posters for Jinx. Obviously, one of Mel's ideas was to rally the Undercity against Jinx, pin all of the bad things that are happening onto one single person. And we see that the absence of Silco has created a power vacuum, and now a lot of innocent people are getting caught in the midst of these gang wars. And here we are getting a better look at the various gangs. Another one. Surprisingly, Smitch's guys are not here, and amidst all of this, we are also getting shots from this kid right here, running from one of the gang members, and I don't really know what her deal is. I don't know if the fact that she's being chased is relevant, like maybe she has some ties with one of the families or gangs, or maybe she's just an innocent getting caught in the middle of all of this. But if that's the case, why are grown-ass men going after the kids? Again, I don't really know. And then she quite literally falls onto Jinx's life. And here we get a cool shot of Jinx's eyes switching from pink glow to just normal pink. There we go, normal pink. And then the thugs notice that this is Jinx and are like, oh no, a nice little hand-drawn onomatopoeia here. And then Jinx says this and this, which to me seems like the writers being self-aware of what it seems that they are doing here, right? They're introducing a kid in Jinx's life. Oh, she's going to learn how to be a big sister or to have someone to take care of, and she's going to learn a lesson from that. This kind of feels like the writer is being like, yeah, we know that that's what the viewers are going to think, which makes me believe that they are maybe going to go on a different direction with the child than that. But at the same time, from what we've seen in the teasers and trailers, that's probably not going to be the case. This is probably going to be how Jinx kind of learns how to be a bigger sister, or at least taking care of people or caring for people. And let's be honest, the child is probably going to die. Also, her hat and goggles remind me of Timu. That was probably intentional, right? Also, I'm a big fan of how a lot of minor characters from the first season are now like being fleshed out and actually have voice. We see here with Smitch, we are going to see the same thing with Scar later on as well, and that's pretty cool. And on the other side, we have the new fish guy from Caitlyn's crew, who has not said a word yet. And here they are going after Margits, which I just learned is the name of the female Cam Baron, after her stash, and they are going to find something there, which we are only going to learn what that is later on. Again, Margit's stash literally has her face on it, and this is the first mention of the Grey, at least in season 2, if we don't count the files that Caitlyn was going through in the first episode. I don't remember if the Grey is referred to by name in the first season. If not, then this is literally the first time they are naming it in the show. But yeah, the Grey is the polluted air that is concentrated in the Undercity. Also, it's interesting that the Grey only exists on the lower layers of Zon. Again, we are getting a lot of hints, and we are getting even more later, of Zon's and Piltover's past and how it exists underneath the cities right now. And here, Smitch downplays the Grey, which is obviously setting up the fact that not only was it, according to the Cureman's files, something of legend almost seen like a monster, but Caitlyn is now bringing that urban legend back and weaponizing it against the Undercity. And here we start hearing some grunts, some howls. The first time I saw this, I thought maybe this was Warwick, but we are going to see these three lights later. These are actually Caitlyn's squad, which makes the grunts and the sound feel really out of place here. And here we see the only sane person in Zon, which is Savika, and Savika is going to say something really important in a second. Topside is the real enemy. And in the trailers, they really framed this as Savika talking to Jinx, but no, she was talking to the other Cam Barons. And again, Savika is a very interesting character in Arcane because she's probably the most loyal to the cause out of everyone. To Savika, what's important is Zon at all costs. That's why she became the second hand in command for Silco. That's why she didn't work for any other Cam Baron, because every other Cam Baron is selfish. They only care about themselves, about being rich and having power. They don't care about the city. Savika cares about the city, but Savika is not a leader. She's a soldier. And here she just wants one of these idiots to cooperate. And Smitch here is being quite smart, technically, right? The best way to get rid of Piltover is just to give them what they want. Jinx, which might sound familiar because that's exactly what was kind of happening in Act 1. All the Undercity had to do was give the kids up to Piltover, right? And because Vander didn't want to do that, that's what escalated everything. That's what led to all the events that happened. Obviously, Silco had some involvement in that as well. It started with the kids, and now, in Season 2, it's starting with Jinx. But now notice what Savika says. We don't hand over our people. Now, doesn't this sound familiar? Doesn't this sound exactly like what Vander said in the first episode of the show? Vander didn't want to give the kids, Silco didn't want to give Jinx, and now Savika also doesn't want to give Jinx. A lot of parallels there. And here we get a little reminder that Savika's arm was destroyed by Vi. Speaking of which, it seems that she has really been struggling, not only from the fact that Silco is gone, but also the fact that she only has one arm, and fixing it is probably not her specialty. Also remember that she sacrificed her real arm for Silco. Also, does Savika know that Jinx was the one? I wonder, because Smitch only learns about it later on. So does Savika know? And here they are bonding over how much Silco bossed them around. You get this undertone of they both liked him. Maybe not in the same way, but he was like a father figure to Jinx, and to Savika, he was someone that believed in the cause, right? He was the leader that Zon needed. So the fact that they are annoyed that he bossed them around doesn't mean that they actually mean it. And the trailers framed these really well, as they made these quotes seem like Jinx was answering another question from Savika, I believe. I believe Savika was like, so what's your plan? And Jinx was like, watch it all burn. turns out they just spliced two quotes from different scenes together. And here we see that Smitch was expecting Jinx, and I think this is a callback to Act 1 of Season 1 as well. I believe we see powder coming out of this tube as well. Oh, interesting. I first saw this without subtitles, and the voice did remind me of Sky, but I wasn't 100% sure, and well, the subtitles just spoil it. They just say it's Sky. But yeah, we are actually hearing the screams from the episode where she was consumed by the X-Core. I didn't notice that. And it's her voice that is going to wake Victor up. And here, Victor just got out of that X-Core cocoon, and for now, his cane looks normal. But I believe it's going to change in a bit. Also, my man is fully naked here. I didn't notice that. I love this framing right here of Jace surrounded by Victor. I really like the effect on Victor's voice. It's almost like an echo. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but I like it. And it's like stronger on certain words. And here we get a better look of like the X-Core cocoon. I believe this should be the table where Victor was when Jace got the X-Core next to him. And this quote right here is probably referencing the scene where Victor's blood gets onto the X-Core, which is happening like at the same time as Jace and Mel are making love, which now makes sense. I'm not going to say that Victor was making love to the X-Core, but a connection was being formed there. Look how big Jace looks next to Victor. And I believe here is when Victor is realizing that Jace is building weapons, because the schematics for the rifle are right here. And this is Sky's journal, if I remember correctly. And this quote right here makes me believe that this Victor is going to get similar to the one that we have in game, where he believes that human error and human emotion is holding us back, right? It was affection that was holding them together, but now he does not value affection as much. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Also, his cane became X-Core, and is also much bigger. Let me see if I can find when this happened. Oh, it was right here. As soon as he left the cocoon and grabbed the cane immediately began to change. It happened so fast, like it was really easy to miss. But we can see that here it's really big. Like this handle right here should be about the same height as his armpit, and it's just about as tall as Victor himself, which, as we'll see either in this episode or the next one, is going to almost start to look like a staff, like from a shepherd, and I believe it will eventually be turned into the staff that we see from Victor in game right now, or something similar. And now we get to see what the Firelights are up to. They are bringing new people who are victims of the current wars between the Cambarons. And again, it's so cool that background characters from Season 1 are now being more fleshed out and actually talking, Scar being one of them. And notice Heimerdinger's mask right here, it's going to show up later, and how convenient an X-Core leaf finds its way to Echo. And here's the mask. I assume this was made by Heimerdinger to look like the other Firelights masks, and here's another reference to League's jungle. Now we have Brumbleback, which is the red buff. Yeah, here we get a better look at what I believe was the table where Jace laid Victor on. This is so awkward. I love how Echo is trying to look tough next to Piltis. So funny. And here we get a callback to Season 1. Heimerdinger is like, oh, like you never tried to sneak in before. Obviously referencing the fact that Victor and Jace sneaked onto the labs in the first act of Season 1. So we get this quote of Jace wondering how the X-Core pattern reached the Undercity, which transitions into this shot. And the first time I saw this, I thought, so maybe it was because Victor left the Undercity that Echo's tree got X-Cored somehow. However, that's not the case. And here we get the first reference to Janna in Act 1, the first of many, and we see that her design here doesn't really match the one in League, also doesn't match the one in LOR, which makes perfect sense. Janna is a goddess, and the majority of people don't really know what she looks like. They've only heard the stories, the myths, the legends, so this is just one artist's interpretation of her. And we see that a lot of people in the Undercity believe in her, which is mostly in line with the current not-so-canon lore. Just notice this little detail right here. There's a drawing here of this tent with a family underneath it, likely drawn by this kid right here. Really, really cool attention to detail from Fortiche here. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, but obviously the blanket that Jace gave to Victor is eventually going to turn into his like cape hood thing that he has I was gonna say in his current design, but Victor is obviously the one getting the VGU, but this seems to be an aspect of his design that they are keeping, which is cool. And here we have the return of that one character that I don't remember the name, but the one that Vander helped in the first episode, and then later he helped Caitlyn help Vi before betraying them to Silco. And I believe this fruit right here is the same one that Milo eats in the first episode. And the guy right here, quite smart. He immediately noticed that Victor is from the upper city, or at least his cane is from the upper city. Obviously, Victor is from Zon. And here we have another mural. Not sure what this is about. Doesn't seem to be anything specific. I can see like a couple figures here, but nothing that I recognize. And I wonder how much of this is real, right? Because Sky's voice is calling to Victor. Victor is seeing footprints, but 1, is this actually Sky? Is she actually guiding Victor? 2, is this all just in Victor's head? Or 3, is there some kind of person, spirit, or entity manipulating Victor for him to do this? Not necessarily malicious intent, maybe it could be like Jana or something, but the first time I watched this, when I wasn't quite sure if the voice was from Sky or not, I wondered if this could be some kind of entity using Victor, or I should say guiding Victor, not necessarily using him. And we return to the arcade from the first act, where the kids were all playing together. That returns in the later acts with a montage of Jinx trying to get a high score on the punching machine. The first time I watched this scene, I immediately knew what was happening, because from the trailers and teasers, we saw that not only did Savika had a new arm, but the arm was also built by Jinx, and it was built using pieces from the arcade, like these mechanisms right here, and the big Chomper mouth is on that shooting range minigame that is on the right, but we can see it here. So I immediately knew that this scene was depicting Jinx building Savika a new arm. And here we see Jinx wearing these goggles, which look like Clagger's goggles. However, I don't think they are the same, because the goggles at least appear on that doll that Jinx made in the shape of Clagger. Obviously, those could just not be his goggles, but I believe they are even like broken in the same way that his goggles broke in episode 3 of season 1. All of this to say that I'm not 100% confident that these are actually his goggles. They might just be ones that look exactly like his, but later on in this scene, Vi is going to pick them up and keep them, which is cool because that's a design aspect that also exists in the canon, not so canon anymore design that we have in League. And now we know what was on the bag. It was Savika's new arm. And we'll get to that scene that was shown earlier this year, because that scene was really well edited in the trailer. And now we see the Grey entering the arcade. Obviously, this is Caitlyn and Vi looking for Jinx. Makes sense that they would come to the arcade. Vi knows that this was an important place for them as kids, but as a viewer, we still don't know that this is Caitlyn's squad. And to me, I was still wondering if this was Warwick, because I thought in the previous scene with Smitch and his gang that the smog was somehow connected to Warwick, but that's not the case. But look at this, the way that this is depicted visually is that almost as if the smog is alive, almost as if it's a monster, it has a mind of its own, which so far I don't believe it's the case. I think this is more like just visual flavor for us, the viewers, than anything else. But this is very in line with the frames that we've seen from the Queerman's files, where the Grey is depicted almost as this monster that is alive, like in a very urban legend, folklore kind of way. And now that I see it, this shot is a bit different than the previous one, because the previous one were just 2 or 3 blue lights. Here we can actually see the various pairs of eyes. And in this scene we get these various jinxed shots, obviously calling back to those from the first season, which are obviously tied to Jinx's mental state and her traumas. And I believe this is also referenced in Caitlyn's new skin in her recall. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but yeah, the Timu minigame returns. This was an Easter egg that was present in the first season and that now returns. I had to take a little break. My voice is dying a little bit. I've been talking for way too long. Hopefully it's not too noticeable in the video, hopefully. Here's when Vi finds the goggles. I wonder if she's thinking about Clagger here. That would be cool. And Jinx hesitates on shooting her sister. And somehow Jinx's tears land right onto the goggles somehow, and I can't really show it, but here we are getting a really cool effect of what I assume is the exit of the arcade, getting far away without the camera moving. And I believe this whole scene is sort of reminiscent, or at least a parallel to that scene from Act 1 of Season 1, where the gang is hanging out at the arcade and the enforcers show up. Now the same thing is happening, but Jinx is alone. Jinx turns on the shooting game and Caitlyn immediately sees Jinx, except this isn't actually Jinx, I think, because then we have this shot right here, and I believe that the Jinx that we saw was just in Caitlyn's head. And after her enforcers don't find Jinx, Caitlyn takes a shot anyway. She loses control for a second, which is obviously here to show us that there's a lot of emotion boiling up inside Caitlyn and she's about to explode. And now we are at that one scene that was shown previously, and I have to say that a lot of quotes and I guess parts of this scene were cut off from the version that was released on YouTube, which again is just the marketing team for Arcane being really smart and creating very deceptive trailers and promotions for the show that don't really spoil everything that's happening. We see one of the thugs throw this piece of food to the ground, which is sort of reminiscent of that one scene where Heimer is meeting Jace while Jace is locked up, and this will become relevant in a bit as Jinx is going to step on it. And just look at his hand-drawn hit frames, so good. And I love how the camera spins around as Jinx spins around. It's so well done. And as the food is about to hit the ground, bam, we transition to Jinx hitting the ground. And after stopping Jinx, the thug reloads his arm, which is a cool detail. Thug knocks her pistol to the side. This will later be picked up by Savika. And I should say that the bag that she had also flew off, which when we first saw the scene, we didn't really know what was inside the bag. Some people thought it was Silco's body. I thought it was going to be fish bones, but now we know that it was Savika's new arm. But the version that was released on YouTube was edited in such a way to make us think that Savika already had that arm before this scene, which wasn't the case. They throw one of her grenades to the side. This will come back in a bit. Also, I love how Smitch just changes his height whenever he's talking to someone and he wants to look more powerful. That's so funny. And I believe this wasn't in the YouTube version, right? This is Smitch finding out that Jinx was the one that killed Silco. And here comes Savika with the weapon that Jinx dropped. And here we see Jinx giving the new arm to Savika. This was not present in the YouTube version at all. Again, it was really well edited to avoid any spoilers.
And here we have this callback to the shot from Season 1 of Savika revealing her new arm.
And here we get a better look at Savika's new arm, obviously made out of parts from the arcade, which is really cool. And here's the food again, and Jinx unfortunately steps on it and loses her balance. And now we see the grenade again, and here we have a better look at it, and it looks like, I believe, Mauser, or at least one of Powder's gadgets from Act 1 of Season 1. And who threw the grenade? None other but the kid, which I'm not sure what's the point of the character yet. They haven't sold me on them so far. And then we get this really cool fight scene between Savika and Smitch, and we get introduced to the ARM's RNG mechanic, which is a slot machine. The first time I watched this, I didn't really get how it works, so let's see if that changes now. We have here a hammer, a chomper, and some stars, and this causes the arm to fly out. I guess the chomper was in the middle, so maybe it's the center one that matters, or maybe it isn't a hammer, I'm not sure.
Okay, so I'm a dummy and I only figured this out while editing, but the drawings are literally depicting the action that the arm will do. So here Savika is going to shoot the head, which is connected to the arm via a wire, and then the stars are just the damage it will do or something. And this logic applies to every single combination except the last one. Again, I'm a dummy, I only understood this later.
And Jinx starts playing for some reason when there was already another song playing. Right, and now we get a shuriken, a puff cap, and Ionian boots of lucidity. I don't know how else to interpret this. And it does nothing. But then she gets Chomper again, punching glove, big star. And this causes a punching glove to come out of the Chomper's mouth. So I guess it's the middle one that matters. And last time she got a puff cap as the middle one, so nothing happened. I'm not sure if I'm understanding how this works. And there's also a score system. Man, this would be really interesting as like a champions kit in League, like these RNG mechanics. And I love these hand-drawn like teeth that we see. So cool. Like Season 2 is looking really good visually. Like look at this frame right here. And we are seeing Savika biting Smitch's arm off. Man, for Season 2 they really like you can see that they were having fun while making this, like especially with the hand-drawn effects. And now Chomper, Shuriken, and it causes shurikens to fly out. Shurikens that have the Eye of Zon here, I just noticed. I'm pretty sure these were like the eyes of Savika's arm too. Chomper, Fire, Meat. So I guess the middle one is the one that matters. What's the point of having 3 then? And score so far is 64. And we get Chomper, Wind, Cloud, which causes it to spit smoke. Makes sense. And the last combination is this Jinxed Smile, which we don't see what it does because it's happening off screen, but I assume it's eating Smitch. And then we see the monkey and fireworks. There we go. And reminder that this episode started with the Cam Barons at each other's throats. It then transitioned to them agreeing to work together, then to Smitch finding Jinx, and then to Smitch dying. Like everything is happening so fast. And here's the quote from the trailer, right? In the trailer, they spliced this quote together with "to watch it all burn." But no, those aren't connected at all. They really set the trailers up to make us think that Jinx was planning a huge attack on the Undercity. And we finally go back to Victor, and we have here one of the footsteps, and then he steps right on top of it, which again makes me really intrigued about who Victor is communicating with, right? Is it really Sky? And if it wasn't obvious already by the introduction of that character from season 1 that lives in the Undercity that Vander helped in the first episode, we are in that area from season 1 where Silco finds Caitlyn and Vi when Vi was deadly injured, which is something that I figured out from the trailers as well. Okay, so it's Sky's voice and footprints leading to what I believe is Sky's silhouette. But does this mean that it's really Sky? Also notice how his eyes have that new X-Core colors, right? Those pinks and greens and whites. When before I believe his eyes were like light brown or gold. And this should be the area from the trailers where we see that big X-Core sphere looking thing, right? I think so. Which is likely the same place we see Ambessa at in one of the trailers, but I'm not sure. So much senseless pain. The way that he talks could be interpreted as Victor being really empathetic of these poor people, but it could also be the start of him seeing human emotion as a weakness, right? There's many ways that this could be interpreted. Depends on the direction that they are taking with this new version of Victor. And here I wonder if Victor's presence is having an influence on these people somehow. And I think this was one of the moments while watching the show where like I was really enjoying it, and I enjoyed the 3 episodes that we have, just like I enjoyed the first season. I think Arcane is amazing, but I think that making Arcane canon had a very negative side effect for at least for me, who knew the old lore, which is as I'm seeing new things that sort of retcon old lore, in the back of my mind, there's this feeling of this isn't League lore. This isn't what I used to know, which is, I think, a normal reaction to seeing something that you've been accustomed to for so long change. And it's just something that I have to, accept that this is the new canon. But again, I love Arcane. It's just that this replacement of what was already there ruins a bit of my enjoyment of the show. I still think the show is amazing, and if this was just fully an alternate universe scenario, I would probably be enjoying it more, or at least without any concerns or second thoughts. Seeing how different the backstory of Victor really made me feel like that. With this being said, it's still too early, right? We are still just 3 episodes in, and I'm really curious on how they will bridge the gap between this and the machine Herald that we know. And here we get some really cool frames. Not specifically this one, but we get a lot of nice ones. And here we have a shot that was in the trailers. I was correct in assuming that this was Victor, and that these took place in that area in the Undercity. And that these were likely the Shimmer addicts that we saw in season 1 as well. Look at this. This wave of magic has the same pattern as the X-Core. That's cool. Yo, Victor, put that away. What the hell? But I guess there's nothing to put away, actually. And as whatever is happening, we see various pieces of metal getting absorbed into the body of this person right here, which makes it seem like Victor has some kind of technomancy magic or techno-organic magic or something like that. Yeah, this is a better shot of the bolts just flying in, getting absorbed. Like when I saw this, I thought that Victor was going to turn this guy into a cyborg, but that's not the case. And again, we see the pattern. A lot of nice hand-drawn effects with that pattern. And look how emotionless Victor is during all of this. Man, I can't wait to find out what the deal with the Arcane is. And the guy was cured. And notice how these X-core markings, which I assume are made out of the metal from the bolts and gears, are exactly in the same positions where the shimmer tumors, I'm not sure what to call them, were on his body. And to whoever guessed that the gold people that we see in the trailers were connected to Victor, well, you were right. It seems like those are followers of Victor, at least people that Victor helped, quote unquote. And I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but Victor is being very deliberately being depicted as a religious figure, as a messiah of sorts, right? From his large cane, which almost looks like a shepherd's staff, to the robes around him. Like, this is not far from like a figure that you might see in Christianity. And we see Sky, but is her spirit really here? Or is Victor just hallucinating? Or is some kind of entity showing Victor what he wants to see? I wonder. But maybe I'm overthinking it. Here, he really looks like a religious figure, which makes sense because the glorious evolved in the canon, not so canon anymore, are a cult for all intents and purposes. And if I'm not misremembering, one that Victor is not too fond of, because the cult kind of just emerged out of the good deeds that he was doing to the people of Zon. And maybe something similar is going to happen here, where Victor just wants to help people. The people being helped are going to see him as a hero, a savior, a messiah, which it might not be what he wants to. That might not be the legacy that he wants for himself. And we go back to Singed again. Every single episode ends with a Singed scene. Here we can see what happened to the Merkwolves, and Singed is doing some splicing probably, mixing creatures together or something. At least that's what it looks like. He injected this green thing onto this black thing, and it seemed to have destroyed the white thing that was inside of it. Again, feeding the theories that Singed might be doing this to help his daughter, which might be in the kind of like Mr. Freeze state, who knows? Oh, and actually, instead of destroyed it, it multiplied it. Maybe I should have let the scene play out a bit more before speaking. And we can see here the parts that he extracted from the Merkwolves, and I was right. There's 2 blue eyes and 2 green eyes, a pair for each head. And he either fused together 2 hearts, or maybe the wolves just have 2 hearts, and that's why he wanted to grab them. Interesting. And finally, the last episode of Act 1. Let's see if my voice survives another one. And here we are going to get an explanation for what Caitlyn and Vi have been doing. We get the backstory behind the Zon Grey, how it came to be from the rise of industry in the fissures, apparently. And look at this. It is being drawn as a monster, like with a face and everything. And the Kiramen were the ones that created or planned a ventilation system to keep the people safe from the grey. The people of the underground deserve to breathe. That's a really interesting quote, because this is obviously showing that Caitlyn's ancestor cared about the people of the Undercity. And now Caitlyn is going to use her legacy against the same people that she was trying to protect. And now we get this montage, which is very reminiscent of that one from the Firelights in terms of art style. Oh, and these are Silku's goons, right? This one and this one right here at least. Cool. And here's exactly what I was saying. The Grey was like a monster to the people of the Undercity. The Kiramen helped the people of the Undercity, and now Caitlyn is weaponizing the Grey against the Undercity. And here we see what happened at Margaret's place. It was Caitlyn and her squad utilizing the Grey against them. And we see Vi doing her signature right hook here. That's cool. Probably also a reference to her ultimate in League, if I had to guess. Especially because she follows up with a punch, which looks like her Q in League. And here we get a map of Piltover and Zon. A quite detailed one. So we got mid something. I can't quite read what's here. Upper Piltover. Something Piltover right here. Alcove District. The Fissures, Southside Arbor, something Piltover here. Oh, and this should be the part where they are dismantling Shimmer, right? That's why the Shimmer bottles were on top of the map. And there's a lot that we have to just interpret in mere seconds, which is that Jinx knows what they are doing and is setting up traps for them. Again, a lot of things in Season 2 happen really fast, and in music montages, it's kind of hard to keep up sometimes. And I don't really know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. yet, as I said in the beginning. And so the gang finds that one guy from Smitch's gang that was still alive after the battle with Savika, and Jinx is taunting them. Yeah, I don't think Jinx is the only one off the rails, especially with his face right here. And now we transition into an Ambessa scene with Amara, and this scene is really good. And here comes the Black Rose. I'm so excited. And I just love how the Black Rose transitions into a weapon, a knife. Really cool. And I'm guessing that this implies that whoever it was that Ambessa-san crossed was tied to the Black Rose. That's cool. Again, not enough to state your bloodlust. We know what you are chasing in Piltover, which as far as we know is X-Tech, right? So that she can use X-Tech as weapons. However, the way that this is phrased here could be hinting at something more that we are not aware of yet. Perhaps something a bit more magical. We will not allow it. Also noticed how the magic looks like thorns from a rose. Your visit only confirms my suspicions, which means that whatever it is that Ambessa was looking for, she wasn't sure it was in Piltover. But now that the Black Rose have come for her, that has confirmed Ambessa's suspicions. So this is likely not the X-Tech, right? This might be related to the Arcane, maybe. And here we see some runic magic, akin to the one found in Riven's blade, which is so cool.
If you are a League player, you might recognize these runes and how they look like Riven's sword. And if you play LOR, the Rune Weaver might have crossed your mind. Well, both the sword and the Rune Weaver are tied to LeBlanc, which makes the appearance of these runes in this scene quite interesting. However, these stones and runes are the exact same ones seen in the League item Kyanic Rukon. It's more than likely that the item and the show were worked on at the same time. And the description of the item in-game is almost the same one as one of Ambessa's quotes in League, which is very cool. And the effect of the item is a magic shield. And what do we see in the show? The guard using the item to repel the magic from the Black Rose.
Insolent witch, like she has to be talking to what about LeBlanc, right? And also I saw a single person a while ago saying that this person was connected to LeBlanc. If that was a prediction, that was a really good one. But if that person just watched the leaked episodes, then no respect there. But if it was a prediction, damn. Okay, so no. So this is Amara speaking, and Amara was likely just a Black Rose spy. Okay, still, she's clearly tied to LeBlanc. I believe we are even going to hear the term Black Rose later on today episode, if I'm not misremembering. You should have given up the feud. What are you looking for, Ambessa? I'm so curious. And we circle back to what Ambessa is all about, her family. And this is going to bite her in the ass in this episode. And here we get a better look at the weapons behind her. I assume a lot of these are reference to items, but I can't really recognize any of them, which is unfortunate. But well, let me know down below what I'm missing here.
And if you noticed, all the weapons are broken. These could be weapons that Ambessa used throughout her life until they broke, but I think these are more than likely trophies, weapons from enemies she defeated.
And this attack on Ambessa is obviously making her a bit more desperate. This guy right here says that Celo isn't ready, that maybe they should get Mel involved. Ambessa is like, no. And this is probably the moment where she decided that Caitlyn should be the one to do her bidding. We must distance ourselves. She's safer as our enemy. Very interesting. Ambessa here is playing chess with everyone and doing whatever she can to keep Mel out of harm's way while still getting whatever it is that she's looking for in Piltover. Very interesting. Black Rose. And we go back to Vi and Caitlyn, and Vi saying how much she believes that Powder is gone and that they have to put down Jinx. It's almost hard to believe her, right? After everything that happened in the first season. And they kiss. I'm sure a lot of people on Twitter are going to be happy about this. And now we go back to Silo. Was that his name? And he's getting all shimmered up by a Vastaya no less. And this is actually a character we've seen before. Not in season 1, but in the documentary of season 1. Which is crazy to think about, that they've had all of this planned for so long. And here we are getting a hint that she can hear really well, because she starts packing her stuff even before Ambessa arrives in the room. So much for being a Piltovan noble, right? Hooked up on Shimmer anyway. Also, this is cool, right? The name Jinx bewitching people, like she's becoming an urban legend, at least in the upper city. And the creators of the show keep hammering the point home that Ambessa really cares about her family. And here we see the purpose of the scene and what Ambessa wants from Silo. She just wants to manipulate him to rally the houses and families and clans so that she can make that speech and give Caitlyn that promotion, with the expectation that due to her grief of having lost her mother, Mbessa will be able to manipulate her into doing what she wants. And the Jarvan banners return in what seems to be a theater owned by the Medarda. I don't remember if this is a detail present in Season 1, maybe it was and I missed it. And here we see an actor playing Jarvan, and this character right here is Mel's assistant from Season 1, and this is a play about Demacia, maybe about how Jarvan became the king, though that would probably bring some issues in terms of timeline, so I'm not so sure about that.
I think it's more likely for this to be a play about Jarvan's father, Jarvan III, even if this crown right here is clearly based on the one from Jarvan IV. I'll just assume the Piltovans are taking some creative liberties.
But here we get a look at Jarvan's crown. I wonder if it's setting up something that will happen beyond Arcane, who knows. At the moment, I think that they are going to explore Noxus and Ionia, but maybe they are going to explore other regions, or maybe one is going to explore Noxus and the live action one is going to explore Demacia, or vice versa. That could be interesting. And the Vastaya that we just saw is working for Mel, aiming to take over and put Salo in the hot seat, or so Salo believes. But yeah, obviously this Vastaya heard all the conversation that Mbessa had with Silo. A shimmer cocktail that leaves traces on the body. So much for being a Piltovan noble. Am I right? And this is a very important detail. Mbessa is scared, or desperate at least. Whatever it is that she's looking for, she wants to find it before the consequences that might come of the Black Rose being after her. We already know that the Black Rose took one of her children. She probably doesn't want them to take another one, or even herself, right? And she's gone. Typical elusive Vastaya, right? And now here we get the scene where Jace is talking about runes and wild runes. And when he mentions here the border between our world and the Arcane, is he talking about the border between the physical realm and the spirit realm? Or is Arcane introducing something new here? And he explains how wild runes are more natural, more raw. Interesting. Most places the Arcane is dormant, but there and there it's more active. It seems like he's describing how we know that the spirit realm operates in the canon, not so canon version of Runeterra. And now Echo is putting one and one together and wondering if the patterns found on the leaves came from the usage of Hextech by the upper city. And he's right, as we'll see. And here Heimerdinger is mentioning how a lot of things that come out of mages turn to horrors, obviously referring to all the catastrophes that happen in Runeterra, most likely the Rune Wars, but we also know of the Ruination, the fall of Shurima, the Call of the Void in Icathia, etc., etc. And again, all of these catastrophes came because of humankind, as Heimerdinger is describing here, but he's wondering if it might be related to the fact that that's just how magic operates. It has this chaotic side of it. And this is when we are going to find out that the X-Gate actually goes really deep underground. Speaking of underground, now we are entering what seems to be a temple of Janna, and we can see what is likely Janna right here, and then we transition into this scene of Mel, which is going to be a really interesting one. I said that Mbessa's main priority, which is her family, is going to bite her in the butt, and here we're going to see that happen. And here we see Mel's brother for the first time, I believe. This should be Mbessa's husband, and it seems like the Black Rose managed to take over most of the Medarda's holdings, which is interesting. And here we are, going under inside the X-Gates. At the same time, we are also entering the Janna Temple, and we are going to go back to these two scenes quite often, but we can see that this area is filled with paintings from Jinx's life. We can see here Vander with Powder and Violet, and Silco should be around here as well. These are all just important moments of her life. Oh, there it is. There's Silco right here, and I haven't mentioned it yet, but obviously this is Janna right here. We've seen this in the trailers. And here I don't really know what they are talking about. JC is wondering how Echo knows so much about something, but what? The X-Gates? I believe they are talking about the X-Gates because he says this, and we are seeing that the X-Gates extend deeper into underground, but I feel like there's a piece of dialogue missing here. Not sure. And I was also right in assuming that these patterns that we see right here were connected to the X-Gates somehow, because they are the same ones that we see in that scene where Victor bleeds into the X-Gate and while Jace is talking to Marcus. It's the exact same pattern on the walls. Oh, okay, they are talking about the X-Gate here. Like, we just got the scene transitions while they were mid-conversation, that's why it looked kind of weird, but it makes sense now. Yeah, classic Piltover mentality right here. If something might blow up, let it blow up on the Undercity, not in the Upper City. And the X-core pattern is showing up at the X-gate, which is going to cause something really crazy to happen in a second. But why did it only happen when Heimerdinger got close to it? That's my question. Is it because Heimerdinger is a Yordle and Yordles are magical beings? Maybe. And Vi finally calls Jinx by the name that she goes now. Oh, name of the episode right here. And we get a full-on reference to Jenna, not just a cameo on murals and the temple. No, Jinx knows about Jenna. This is really cool, right? This is some really nice world building just being thrown off in a couple of quotes right here. And we get a better look at Jenna. Nice. Oh, and we see here Milo and Claggar. And this was so obviously like not Jinx, just some reflection. Like not for a second did I think that this was the real Jinx. Oh, and this is a leaf right here, right? Likely a callback to the funeral of Caitlyn's mother, as well as that vision/dream that she was having about shooting Jinx. Most likely the latter, right? Makes perfect sense. Also, what is the kid doing here? Like, what is this character? Echo wonders if this is a wild rune. I wonder if this is connected to the world runes somehow, right? That could explain a lot. Also, I love the design of this thing and how it moves. Like, these details right here that make it look like those black fluid metals, the texture that makes it look like cells or something being seen through a microscope, the colors, it's so familiar yet so alien at the same time. This is a very cool shot right here with Jinx's bullets going right through Silco's drawing. And also it's interesting that Caitlyn's bullet managed to penetrate this lid right here, but Jinx's bullets don't. Just goes to show how powerful X-Tech is. And rest in peace, Pow Pow. And for some reason, as Jace is about to touch whatever this is, it begins to spin and some crazy stuff is about to happen. And I wanna go frame by frame and see this because I really like these glitches that are happening to everything that has X-Tech on it. It's so well made. Like, look at this. What a cool frame of all like the pieces getting multiplied and stuff. And the same thing happens to Caitlyn's rifle. Notice the hex-core pattern again. So cool. So well done. And it's going to happen to Vi's gauntlets as well. It's almost as if they are being displaced in time and space or something, which makes sense because that's what the X-Tech does. And I was wondering, shouldn't Fishbones also be glitching out? She shot her ultimate at the council. This is more like her rocket Q. And this scene right here was caused by Jinx's rocket. I don't think anyone predicted that from the trailers. And this part right here is so funny. She just vanishes. Roop. Okay, and we get this really cool scene with Chase. I have to be honest, I was expecting a scene just like this, but with Echo. Kind of based on the moment in his lore where he figures out the X-Tech and he sees like alternate reality versions of himself. I was expecting it to be just like this, but with Echo. Also, I'm pretty sure there is a scene just like this in the trailers with Chase inside of it, or inside of this thing, right? And here we get some really cool visuals. Look at this. What the hell is happening? It's like they are breaking apart, but being multiplied at the same time. It's so weird. Like, I can't remember seeing anything like this ever. Alright, what a nice transition into the eye of Jinx's rocket launcher as she's shooting another rocket. Oh, okay, but Fishbones is also glitching out, so it also has a gem. And it completely breaks apart and explodes. What is happening? And if it wasn't obvious already that the X-Tech is the source of all the glitching, or if the glitching is affecting the X-Tech, I should say, we see this happening. So many cool effects. And look at this, so cool. Like all the smear frames, definitely handmade, right? Really cool. And the glow from the X-Tech and the glow from the shimmer parallels, really cool. What have we done?
And here I want to mention the lyrics of the song playing in the background. The lyrics seem to be referring to X-Tech and or to the X-Core and how Jace and especially Victor were basically playing God or at least using magic in a dangerous way, and that there will be consequences for this. If they don't stop, they'll turn everything into ashes and blood, basically destroy everything and kill everyone. And this song features some chants that are translated in the lyrics. These are Shuriman and are a prayer to the old goddess Janna Haram, aka Janna. In case you didn't know, Janna is indeed a Shuriman god, though there she has been mostly forgotten and now most of her believers are Zawnites. I'm not sure how to interpret most of these yet, but we can see the term blue bird, which is heavily associated with Janna, being essentially another name for her. And also, more than a year ago, the icon of Janna's passive was updated to feature Vi's boot, probably a teaser for season 2.
And Jace finally touches it, which was what he was trying to do before everything got all psychedelic. And what is happening here? I really wonder if these visuals from the Arcane are hinting at something like an alternate timeline or time travel element that's going to be part of the narrative. Because with X-Tech essentially making things go faster in time, right? The X-Gates, the Caitlyn's rifle making the bullet go faster, the fact that when they discovered X-Tech, they were floating in midair and the window exploded and then the glasses returned, and the fact that this is all tied to the Arcane, and the first chronological instance of magic being used in the show is from that mage teleporting Jace and his mother out of that snowy area. It really makes it seem like the Arcane can manipulate reality and in specific space and time. And this would tie really well with Echo creating his Z-Drive, which is obviously connected to time travel. So maybe this theory might actually be true. I'm not sure yet. And then look at these frames right here. Oh my god. And we even get a couple frames of Jace as a child before he was teleported by the mage, right? Here's another one from season 1, and now Jace is going to try to break this thing, and we get this shot right here, which is a callback to the shot from when the mage teleported Jace, but instead of Runeterra, we see this sphere right here, and we get a couple of cool impact frames before things seemingly returning to normal. Psych, I believe this was in the trailers. And is Caitlyn using like the distortion against Savika? That's kind of funny. Oh, she definitely was. Look at this. I like how no one is questioning what is happening. They're just, yeah, we got bigger things to worry about right now. And this has to be a callback to Savika's fight with Vi, right? Where the fight starts with Vi putting her knee on Savika's face. And as the sisters fight, this pillar right here, boom, destroyed. There goes the drawing of them as children. And I was right by assuming that this fight would take place at the end of Act 1. I think a lot of people were expecting this to be like the big finale. Nah. This was obviously happening earlier in the season. And there goes one finger. That explains all the artworks that we've seen of Jinx with a metal/robotic finger. I'm glad it's you. It had to be you. This was in the first teaser for season 2, right? I believe it was. Man, why did he had to be this child? Right? I don't care about this character. What is this character doing here? I'm kidding, but like, I feel like maybe there could have been better ways to do this. Not sure. And Kate has fully lost her mind. Janna is watching. And now Savika explodes this door right here, which causes air to flow, and this is going to lead to paint flowing all over the town, as we'll see. Oh, it's not only paint, it's the gray mixed with paint. Yeah, we see it well right here. We can see the paint and the gray, and they become just one. And we go back to that scene where Jace met with Caitlyn, and obviously the ventilation there was foreshadowing what we'll see right now. And here we have a shot that is exactly or almost exactly like one from season 1, episode 1. And obviously, if you are in Piltover, this is quite scary. It's almost like a harmless terrorist attack. These are some nice character designs for basically background characters. Yeah, but I was gonna say, if you are from Piltover, this is probably scary. If you are from Zone and you never even go to that side of the city anyway, this probably looks cool, especially if you are a kid. As soon as she wakes up, she goes straight to her weapons, tries to go straight to Jinx again. Caitlyn has really gone full-on revenge mode. Oh my god, shut up, Caitlyn. Just shut up. And then Caitlyn hits Vi and leaves, and this is probably going to lead into the pit fighter arc. Because we'll also see in this episode that the big guy from their squad also leaves, and we see him in the pit fighter scene, so it makes sense for those scenes to happen right after these ones. So probably episode 4, if I had to guess. And now, Vi is all alone. She only had Caitlyn left, now she doesn't have anyone. Except maybe the one guy that she met in the streets and had a couple drinks with, and all of a sudden they were friends. Maybe she has that guy. Until she also pushes him away, as we've seen in the scene that was posted on YouTube. Beautiful shot. We're seeing the aftermath of what Jinx did, or I guess of what Savika did, because she was the one that pressed the button or whatever. And I like how the trailers really made it seem like this was some kind of plan that Jinx had to go against the upper city and watch it all burn, and that the top side was the real enemy, as Savika said. The trailers were really well framed to make us believe something that isn't actually the case. However, there are still the parts from the trailer where we see Jinx as a symbol, right? We see her in the murals, we see people with blue hair, so that is still happening, probably because of this paint attack that she did, right? Before we were theorizing that it was because she shot a rocket at the council. but maybe it's actually because of these right here. That would be interesting.
Regardless, I think my theory stays correct. Jinx isn't the revolutionary figure the Zonites think she is, at least not at first. She didn't paint the town to start a revolution. Hell, she barely cares about the cause or the liberation of Zon. She tells Savika her goal was to finish her family. And to be honest, I think she wanted to die at the hands of Vi, or even kill herself and her sister at the same time, with the paint being her grand finale. Jinx's motives are not altruistic, they are selfish, but the people of Zon don't know this, and so she will become a symbol of the revolution. How she will react to this is what we are going to find out in the next act, I believe.
And now we go back to Mel and Elora, and we are finally going to see that really cool scene. A drop of blood falls from the sky, and look what it is, it's the Black Rose. And it's interesting that it looks like blood, right? Because there's a certain member of the Black Rose that is very associated with blood, right? And we know that Ambessa's son crossed a man, so maybe, or maybe it has like nothing to do with blood, because in the previous Black Rose scene, it just looked like magic, like red magic, maybe related to demons, who knows? So maybe not connected to blood and Vladimir at all. We see a rose right here, and I really like these visuals, right? It's almost like they are bringing Mel into another dimension, which they might, maybe not literally, but I'll say what I want to say in a bit. More visuals of thorns from roses and black roses sprouting out of Elora's face. Black Rose! So cool. Notice how her shadow is already with the same like red spacey texture. Cool. So cool. And now she's disappearing as well. And I believe this is going to lead into that scene that we've seen from the trailers of that shadowy figure. Because one, the background of that shot is the same one from Mel's flashback. Second, the silhouette is exactly the same one as Elora's, which means that the Black Rose is likely taking over Elora's body to send a message to Mel, or maybe to send a message to Ambessa. I'm pretty sure that they are going to mess with Mel in some way, which makes sense because they want to get to Ambessa. Best way to get to Ambessa, through her family. And the final scene of this episode, not counting the singed one that we'll see in a bit, is the one where Ambessa makes a speech and promotes Caitlyn. And here we are going to see various clans and families, and I believe these should be the families of the council members that died or of Amara. And I say this because here we see one of the council members still alive, and these are very likely part of her family or of her clan.
And here we see a member of Bulbok species.
Here we see another one. These guys almost look like vampires. Like, if you told me this was Vladimir in Arcane, I might believe you. And this phrase right here was in the trailers. I thought she was talking directly at Caitlyn. She wasn't, though I do believe that she shows her words very carefully to get to Caitlyn, especially when she's mentioning the memorial, right, which was about the council members that died, including Caitlyn's mother. And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is how every single evil person gets elected, right? They play onto the fears that people have. They shape those fears into hatred until they seize full control of the people. And there it is. She chose Caitlyn instead of Salo, which makes perfect sense. Salo's usefulness probably ended, but Caitlyn, she can still exploit a lot because of her grief, because of her current mental state. She is the perfect candidate for Ambessa to take advantage of. And this is when we look back to the first episode and we see that Ambessa was the one that set up that attack at the memorial. Here's the letter, the same one that we see Rennie give to the enforcers in the first episode. Also, this is something that I overlooked the first time. Ambessa knows that Rennie lost her son. Ambessa knows that Jace killed the son of a Chem Baron. That's quite specific information to have, right? I wonder if Ambessa was also involved in season 1 somehow. Like, how else would she know where Rennie is? How else would she know that Rennie lost her son to Jace specifically? And here we see Ambessa telling her guards to wait for the chem tanks to do their thing, to scare the people, to kill a couple wardens before they help, so that they can show Piltover that Piltover needs Ambessa, that Piltover needs these Noxians. And then Ambessa kills Rennie, leaving no evidence behind. I fucking hate you. What are you doing? And it's at this point that this guy leaves. Obviously, he doesn't want anything to do with this. Probably a Noxian hater. I respect him for this, even though I know nothing about him, because the show has not explored his character yet. And here we see one of the shots from the trailer, and here we see Ambessa's plan. She wants to be the one pulling the strings, not the one showing the face, not the one that seems that is in control, but the one that is actually in control. Also, I like how Caitlyn's silhouette looks a bit closer to Silco now. That is interesting. I wonder if that was intentional. Probably. And also this attire, I thought that this was going to be Ambessa's outfit as a member of the council, because I thought Mel was going to die initially. But no, this seems to be just her formal attire. And Act 1 ends with the teaser that we saw before of Singed and Warwick. Nothing much to say here, we had already seen it before. It's really cool that all episodes end with Singed setting up Warwick, and obviously here we have the hint that Singed might be doing all of this for his daughter. And on Netflix there's also a preview for the next act, so if you don't want to get spoiled, you should click off the video. Thank you so much for watching so far. We get Savika looking at Vander's statue. I wonder if she's having a moment similar to Silco in the last episode, where she now understands Vander a little better. Oh, they added Echo to the mural? That's interesting. Usually people are only added here if they died or if they changed like Powder. I wonder if this is tied to the shots that we've seen of Echo in like a Piltovan attire. Okay, this is very similar to the shot that we just saw of Savika looking at Vander's statue, and I guess also of Scar looking at the mural, right? These are all tributes to people that passed away. This mirror looks like the one from Vi's Pit Fighter scene. Interesting. And this is Ambessa speaking to Caitlyn. Clearly pulling the strings. Alright, so Act 2 is going to feature the Pit Fighter scene. I called it like 10 minutes ago. Nice. The next act also features the Jinx followers. Okay. Or maybe this is teasing the next two acts and not just the first one. More of the Fireflies. Oh, and it seems that some are joining Jinx's side, right? Because this scene is the same that we've seen in the trailers, just at a different point. Pit Fighter Vi, this looks more like the skin on Wild Rift, right? Before she breaks the gauntlets and Jinx fixes them, which is the skin that we have in League, right? And they are breaking into Stillwater? This is the same place where Singed should have been locked up in, right? Because in the trailers we do see the enforcers apprehending Singed, and we also see Warwick rampaging through the prison. Oh, speaking of which, is this really Warwick? Oh, I don't see like the circular thing that he usually has here. So I wonder if this is just another person also mutated. Probably not, right?
And also, I should say that in the trailers we've seen Ambessa meeting with Singed, so it's possible that Singed made some kind of deal with her and he's now running experiments inside the prison, which would explain why Warwick is also there. Also, when you think about chemical warfare in League, Singed is probably the champion that comes to mind, not Caitlyn. So I wonder if eventually Singed is the one that's going to weaponize the Grey to help the Noxians.
And here we see a couple more shots from the trailer, but also this one, which we hadn't seen before. And this seems to be the aftermath of the scene that we saw in this episode of Mel being targeted by the Black Rose.
And behind Mel, we can see magic in the shape of chains, likely referencing LeBlanc's E ability in League.
And what is happening here? What happened to Jace? Oh wait, the Fireflies think that Echo died. Jace is looking much older here. Did they get like stuck in time somehow? Oh, that would make a lot of sense.
And with Echo gone, it makes sense that some Firelights might join Jinx's group. And we've actually seen that in the trailers already. One of the Firelights from Season 1 siding with Jinx.
And here we see Ambessa's guy in a very interesting location. And we can see here the plants from Season 1, and we actually see this scene as well in Legends of Runeterra in the card of this character right here, because for the artwork of the card they use the screenshot from the show, and we also see these plants in the background in that card. Oh, and he's fighting Jinx? Oh, that's cool. Nice framing as well. Alright, this seems to be in the same area where Victor was doing X-Core things. I don't know how to describe that. Which makes me believe that maybe they are like creating some sort of community there, but why is Ambessa fighting there? Maybe because of that X-Core thing that looks like a X-Gate is also in this area, but later, as we've seen in the trailers. And this has to be the moment where Vi is fighting Warwick, because of the red background, and it matches that scene from one of the trailers as well, right? And it transitions into a scene of Jinx punching this guy through a window, and we see Savika with the child. Now the child is also with blue hair, like most of the Jinx followers that we've seen. Here it is. This is the shot that I was mentioning. Like, this is Warwick, 100%, because we see like the claw design, we see the thing on his back. This is definitely Warwick. And this matches that scene that we've seen earlier with Powder. Where is it? This right here, right? Also has that red background. However, this probably takes place in the prison, right? This might be the moment where Warwick rampages to the prison, as we've seen in the trailers. So when or where does this take place? I don't know.
This likely takes place after the pit fighter scene and after Vi finds the mural of Jinx. She must eventually find her way to the prison that Jinx is invading or whatever it is that she's doing there, and then boom, both of them fight Warwick. And it's during this battle that Vi's gauntlets will likely break, and sometime later Jinx will repair them, as we see in the Vi skin that is currently on PBE.
Because Vi is wearing her pit fighter outfit, I'm going to assume that all of this takes place in Act 2. I think that makes the most sense, right? Especially with them setting up Warwick at the end of each of these episodes, it makes sense for Warwick to appear in the next act. Really cool. And with this, I think I've talked enough. My voice is dying, I need to go edit all of this. But yeah, a lot of details, a lot of predictions to be had here. I'm curious to see what they'll do with Victor. I want to see how he goes from Arcane Shepherd to Machine Herald. I want to see what is happening with Echo, Heimer, and Jace. Are they stuck in time? Are they in another dimension? I want to see how the Black Rose is going to mess with Mel. I want to see how Caitlyn shakes off this revenge arc. I want to see what's going to happen with Singed and Warwick in the Stillwater prison. I want to see how Jinx gets turned into a symbol for the Undercity and why she's also in that prison and what's going to happen between her and Warwick, and then with Vi and Warwick. And I also want to see Vi go through her pit fighter fight. I'm sad that they showed that scene because that scene is really good. I wish I could see it for the first time, while watching the rest of the show. However, it's possible that the YouTube version is edited, just like the Jinx and Savika scene, in such a way that it's not actually revealing everything that is going to happen in that scene. I hope so, I really hope so. Thank you so much for watching so far. I know this was a very, very long video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below everything that I missed. I'm sure I missed like a million things. There's so much to analyze and process in Fortitia's work. It's amazing. If you aren't subscribed already, please consider doing so. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Also consider liking, commenting, sharing, etc. That really helps me grow my channel. And with this being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.